Taxation, oppression, mission. Free market ingrained with corruption, where one hand washes up the other. GOP, rolling back regulations needed across the U.S. nation. In favor of the rich over poor and middle class, top-down economics, more cash in the pockets of the rich to the detriment of the people. GOP nonsense. Poor and middle class, engine of the economy. Bottom-up economic philosophy. Money placed at the bottom for poor and middle class. Bottom-up economics, more cash in the pockets of the poor and middle class. Economic simulation cash. Poor and middle class spend from pockets. The rich benefit from the profits. Money benefits bottom to top. Poor middle class rich all got money in pockets flowing like fluid. Bottom up is the way to do it. Time is up for GOP false logic. Time to get with bottom up economics. Bottom up economics. BGMGProductions.com. Be Goines and them Goines. Welcome to Political Facts with Byron Goines
and Michelle Goines.
The song you heard is entitled Bottom Up Economics and is available to purchase at bgmgproductions.com. We're on a mission to educate and inform our listeners on everything concerning politics that they will not hear through any other media. This lecture is available in its entirety for purchase at bgmgproductions.com. Today's lecture will be an analysis of the Georgia U.S. Senate runoff debate between incumbent Republican Kelly Loeffler and Democrat Raphael Warnock. In the Georgia U.S. Senate runoff election debate between incumbent Republican Kelly Loeffler and Democrat Raphael Warnock, Kelly Loeffler proved unequivocally that she is a Trump follower by using his talking points. Folks, Kelly Loeffler is a capitalist, just as Donald Trump is a capitalist. And she proved unequivocally that she will support legislation that benefits corporations to the detriment of the poor and middle class. If you haven't listened to our broadcasts on universal basic income and capitalism, you need to listen to them in order to find out the economic philosophy of the Republican Party. And don't let Kelly Loeffler's use of the word socialism trick you. Both Kelly Loeffler and Donald Trump attempt to use a Republican Party tactic that the Republican Party attempted to use on Franklin D. Roosevelt, and the Republican Party tactic didn't work. Prior to the administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Republican Herbert Hoover was president of the United States when the stock market crash of 1929 happened, resulting in a Great Depression, and the blame was placed on Republican President Herbert Hoover and his administration. As a result of the Great Depression, the Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected to office, replacing the Republican Herbert Hoover and beginning what he called a New Deal for the American people, which were programs designed to get the United States back on track and help the American people. And Republicans called the New Deal programs socialism. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs that helped Americans who were struggling financially, and some of the programs are still in effect now in the 21st century. The Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt initiated these programs to help Americans who were struggling financially, and it took a while to repair the damage done, resulting in the Great Depression. But because of Roosevelt's help for the American people through the New Deal programs, Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected to office by the American people for 4 terms, and he passed away during his 4th term in office. After Roosevelt, the 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution was enacted, limiting a president to 2 terms under the Constitution of the United States. Republicans called Franklin D. Roosevelt's programs socialism, but the American people elected Franklin D. Roosevelt to office for 4 terms. So the social programs of Roosevelt were undoubtedly helping people in need, which is the reason the American people continued to elect Roosevelt to office. The American people were in need of help, and Franklin D. Roosevelt effectively utilized principles of socialism to help people in need. And programs from the Franklin D. Roosevelt administration are still in effect today. How many of you receive Social Security? How many of you receive unemployment compensation? How many of you receive aid for your dependent children? These programs resulted from Franklin D. Roosevelt administration legislation that was signed into law in 1935 called the Social Security Act, which was called socialism by Republicans back in the day. According to the Social Security Administration website at www.ssa.gov, the Social Security Act was signed into law in 1935. As the following information states, an act to provide for the general welfare by establishing a system of federal old age benefits and by enabling the several states to make more adequate provision for aged persons, blind persons, dependent and crippled children, maternal and child welfare, public health, and the administration of their unemployment compensation laws, to establish a Social Security Board, to raise revenue, and for other purposes. Concerning aid for dependent children, the United States Department of Health and Human Services website at aspe.hhs.gov states the following information. Aid to Families with Dependent Children, AFDC, was established by the Social Security Act of 1935 as a grant program to enable states to provide cash welfare payments for needy children who had been deprived of parental support or care because their father or mother was absent from the home, incapacitated, deceased, or unemployed. People in both political parties throughout the United States benefit from the passing and signing into law of the Social Security Act of 1935 by Franklin D. Roosevelt, which Republicans called socialism. The Republican Party preys on the ignorance of the American people, and this is the reason you should do due diligence when you hear anything stated by anyone, in order to ensure that what you are being told is factual. The Republican Party attempted to utilize the word socialism in order to trick the American people concerning socialism and how its principles could be utilized to help the poor and middle class in the United States system of regulated capitalism that clearly still exploits and oppresses the poor and middle class, as proven through capitalist actions in the early 20th century and before, through the present time in the 21st century, where workers are exploited and oppressed by capitalists as they provide the labor for low wages to produce the goods and provide the services, while at the same time those exploited and oppressed workers are paying the high prices to purchase those goods and services. As I've stated many times before, employees support corporations on both sides of the economic equation. Kelly Loeffler kept stating that she is a job creator. Let me ask you a question. Who creates jobs? Kelly Loeffler clearly exhibited Donald Trump's mentality when she kept referring to herself as a job creator, thereby disrespecting all of the American people that she obtains profit from on both sides of the economic equation. Someone should inform Kelly Loeffler that the customers are the job creators, because without customers, Kelly Loeffler would have no business and no employees. Yet, Kelly Loeffler wants to take credit for creating jobs that would not exist if not for customers. And who are the customers? The customers are the same people who provide the labor to produce the goods and provide the services, regardless of whether it's Kelly Loeffler's business or any other business in the United States. Kelly Loeffler is benefiting from her employees on both sides of the economic equation. She has employees who work for her, and those employees are also customers who purchase what she sells. So to say that she is the job creator is a slap in the face to her employees and all employees throughout the United States of America. If there were no customers purchasing what Kelly Loeffler had to sell, Kelly Loeffler would clearly be out of business, or she would have to fund her business with her own money. And with no customers, she would waste a lot of money on a business with no customers and no employees, unless she would be willing to pay her employees out of her own money to show up at a workplace where there is no work to be done, because she has no customers. This proves unequivocally that Kelly Loeffler does not create jobs. Kelly Loeffler operates a corporation that is dependent upon customers to create jobs. And this is true for every corporation that exists. The customers create the jobs, and the employees are also the customers. This is how the system of regulated capitalism in the United States operates. This is also true throughout the world. Kelly Loeffler undoubtedly does not understand that a lot of people start mom and pop businesses by themselves, and they don't start hiring people until they have generated revenue from customers. That results in a profit margin that enables them to hire employees. And as their business grows through increased sales to customers, resulting in an increase in demand and profit, they gain the revenue needed to hire more employees. And small businesses who receive loans to start their businesses have to pay those loans back. So they have to have a customer base that enables them to generate the profit to pay their employees and pay back the small business loans. Some people start businesses out of their home or garage and rent retail space after their business has grown. Some people start businesses that are designed to be worked out of their home. But regardless of the type of business, the customers are the major part of the business. Because where there are no customers, there is no business. And this is a fact. Concerning socialism, the Republican Party is undoubtedly still attempting to trick people concerning socialism, as proven by Kelly Loeffler's references to socialism. So let's educate Kelly Loeffler concerning the United States, capitalism, and socialism. Merriam-Webster's online dictionary defines socialism as any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. In the United States, the people of the United States have collective ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods, and their elected representatives working for the people of the United States oversee the social programs that are funded through the taxes paid by the people of the United States. The people of the United States collectively own and pay for the social programs, and this is all done through the United States government, which the people of the United States collectively own and control. Remember, the United States government is a government of, by, and for the people, as stated by Abraham Lincoln. The United States consists of a hybrid economic system of regulated capitalism and socialism. Think of it as being two parts of one economic system. The regulated capitalism side is private and corporate industry. Capitalism is regulated in the United States through the many United States federal government regulatory agencies. The socialism side, as I just stated, is where the American people, through their tax money and elected representatives, control the means of production and distribution of goods on the United States federal government side. All United States federal government social programs are controlled by United States taxpayers through their elected representatives, who are supposed to work on behalf of the United States taxpayers or risk being voted out of office. The elected representatives work on behalf of their constituents, who are the United States taxpayers. This hybrid economic system enables the United States to utilize principles of socialism that can end poverty in the United States and operates alongside regulated capitalism, which enables private and corporate industry to operate, while at the same time keeping corrupt capitalists and their corporations in check. Listen to our lectures on universal basic income and capitalism for more information concerning Republican economic philosophy that benefits the rich to the detriment of the poor and middle class. What I'm going to say next is for Republicans in Georgia voting in the U.S. Senate runoff election who are struggling financially and in need of stimulus money. And it is also for Republicans who will vote in future elections throughout the United States of America who are struggling financially. What are you doing voting for a political party that is working against your interests? You need money, and the Republican Party's economic philosophy is totally against giving you any money. If push comes to shove, some Republicans may vote for a one-time stimulus, and you know that a one-time $1,200 stimulus will not give you the help that you need. You have seen the Republican stance on giving money to the people of the United States, even though the money will stimulate the economy. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans don't want to give you money and stimulate the economy. When it comes to congressional legislation and money, Republicans would prefer to give money to multi-billion-dollar corporations instead of the poor and middle class who will create jobs when they spend the money because of the increase in demand. Do you prefer money be given to multi-billion-dollar corporations who will engage in stock buybacks and other corrupt activities while you continue to struggle financially through no fault of your own? Or would you prefer money be given to you to help you and your family so you can spend the money into the economy yourself, which will create jobs through the increase in demand? Republicans in Georgia and throughout the United States, you may not have known this, but the Republican Party's economic philosophy is trickle-down economics, which favor the rich over the poor and middle class. That is why Mitch McConnell refused the Democrats' $3.4 trillion stimulus bill and came up with his own $500 billion stimulus bill, leaving out any stimulus money for the American people. Mitch McConnell is looking out for the interests of the rich over the interests of the poor and middle class. Don't fall for Republican lies because they are not looking out for the best interests of poor and middle class people in the United States. If Mitch McConnell and the Republicans were looking out for the best interests of the poor and middle class, not only would they have agreed with the $3.4 trillion bill proposed by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they would have insisted that the bill be higher than $3.4 trillion to address the needs of all Americans for as long as it takes. Mitch McConnell's proposal for $500 billion should show you that Republicans care nothing about the needs of poor and middle-class people who are struggling financially through no fault of their own. It's time to stop blindly following a political party that cares nothing about poor and middle-class people, as proven unequivocally by Mitch McConnell's $500 billion proposal. In my opinion, Abraham Lincoln would not be a Republican if he were living today, because the values of today's Republican Party concerning the least of these are not the values of the Republican Party in Lincoln's day. In my opinion, Frederick Douglass would not be a Republican if he were living today for the same reasons. Today's Republican Party is not the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And let me remind you that the Republican Party during the time of Abraham Lincoln had abolitionists as supporters. Today's Republican Party has white supremacists as supporters. This is a 360-degree change. A political party with white supremacists as supporters, along with a Republican president who gives shout-outs to white supremacists, should be a political party that United States citizens with values should not want to be a part of. The only people who should be remaining in today's Republican Party should be their white supremacist supporters. Everyone else should be either independents or Democrats, and these are the facts. If the Republican Party does not change back to the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, it's going to eventually go the way of the Whig political party, which no longer exists. While the Republican Party is still in existence, it can change back to the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. But will it move in this direction? Hopefully, but probably not. In conclusion, if you are a poor and middle-class Republican in Georgia and anywhere else in the United States, voting for Republicans will ensure that everything possible to benefit the rich financially will be on the table to the detriment of poor and middle-class people in the United States. But voting for Democrats will ensure that everything possible to benefit the poor and middle class financially will be on the table. And the rich will also benefit from trickle-up economics because they will make a profit. So everyone benefits from the bottom to the top of the ladder. So that you understand, Republican trickle-down economic policies benefit the rich and hurt the poor and middle class. Democrat trickle-up economic policies benefit the poor, middle class, and rich. For further study on trickle-down economics and trickle-up economics, listen to our broadcast on universal basic income and capitalism. Kelly Loeffler is a capitalist, as is Donald Trump. As I just stated, Republican economic philosophy is trickle-down economics, which benefits the rich to the detriment of the poor and middle class. Kelly Loeffler will support Mitch McConnell's desire to block stimulus money for the American people. And let me also state that the stimulus money should be $2,000 per month for the American people, and probably will be $2,000 per month when the Democrats win the 2 U.S. Senate seats in Georgia. One thing is for sure, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue will support Mitch McConnell and the Republicans' weak proposal for $500 billion with no stimulus money for the American people. Remember, Republicans work for the benefit of corporations to the detriment of the poor and middle class people who elected them to office. If you are struggling financially, electing Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue to office is a vote for the corporations and a vote against the interests of everyone who is struggling financially in the United States. So if you want the stimulus money, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, electing Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock is a vote for everyone who is struggling financially in the United States and will ensure that legislation containing stimulus money will be passed and signed into law by incoming President Joe Biden. For this to become a reality, Democrats must control the Senate. Economic stimulus money and much more is on the table. So make sure that you vote in the Georgia U.S. Senate runoff election. We thank you for your time. You can purchase this lecture in its entirety at bgmgproductions.com. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll pick it up next time on Political Facts with Byron Goines
and Michelle Goines.
Prove it. Supply and demand, demand and supply. We gon' let you know the reason why. Republican Party's economic system made the poor and middle class victims of a U.S. trickle-down nation tied to the Ronald Reagan administration. The system, trickle-down economics, benefiting the rich Reaganomics, known as supply-side economics. prohibition. Free market ingrained with corruption, where one hand washes up the other. GOP, rolling back regulations needed across the U.S. nation. In favor of the rich over poor and middle class, top-down economics, more cash in the pockets of the rich to the detriment of the people. GOP nonsense. Poor and middle class, the engine of the economy. Bottom-up economics philosophy. Money placed at the bottom for poor and middle class. Bottom-up economics, more cash in the pockets of the poor and middle class. Economic simulation cash. Poor and middle class spend from pockets. The rich benefit from the profits. Money benefits bottom to top. Poor middle class rich all got money in pockets flowing